P.3 to my boyfriend cheating on me and getting the other girl pregnant. So after Tori's husband sent me this message, I still couldn't believe it. I thought it was just a joke until I looked at Logan and said, "Hey, Tori's husband texted me." As soon as I said that, his face dropped and he stopped talking, which solidified my fear, and my husband admitted to everything. I dropped my phone and just cried. Like, how many times had he left to go help her while I stayed at home pregnant? The amount of times he went to go visit her at lunch, and he even admitted that the baby that Tori was pregnant with was his. I ended up finding out that their relationship had been going on for 3 years, which was before she was even married to her husband and before Logan and I got together. And when we broke up, he ended up proposing to Tori with a much nicer ring. But ultimately, when she had the baby, he just abandoned that baby too. And to this day, he has not seen that baby and still refuses to see my son. I even tried to suggest a healthy co-parenting relationship between the four of us, and he couldn't even seem to do that. Tori and her husband ended up getting back together, and she's tried to reach out multiple times to apologize, but it just really doesn't make up for what she did.
Part 2 of how I caught my 13-year-old sister sleeping with her teacher. So continuing on with the story, I was just waiting outside the room until they got done. And one day my mom called me and said that it was an emergency and she had to pick us up early. So I knocked on the door really lightly and then I opened the door. And I'm surprised it wasn't locked. And I opened the door and I see my 13-year-old sister and her 42-year-old teacher just getting it on. I mean, I ain't no snitch, so I didn't say nothing. At the time, I was 11 years old in 6th grade and I high-fived her. Then the teacher bribed me with $500 to not say anything. Again, I was in 6th grade at the time, so my parents would definitely wonder where I got the money from. So the teacher told me that if I let them keep doing their thing, he'll make this fake raffle and say that I won it. Because me and my sister were so close, I never snitched on her. And this is the first time I'm telling the story. Me and my sister don't talk anymore. So if you're that teacher that gave me $500 to keep effing my older sister, you are probably one of the most disgusting people that I've ever met. And if this story gets out there, sorry for saying this, but I need to get this out there, John Wilson, you deserve to rot in jail.
Story time on why I tried to run over my science teacher because he was a pervert. So back in 2015, I went to a university, which I'm not going to say the name of because I don't want them to know that I'm talking about them. And I majored in nursing, and usually when you major in that type of field, you usually get a lot of like science classes. So my first year, I took chemistry, which all the students have to do for their first year. It was a requirement. And my science teacher, we're going to call him Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson was like in his 40s, middle age. He had a wife and 2 sons. I know this because he plastered them all over the damn desk. His class was hard, but he was a really nice teacher. And whenever I needed any help, I could email him. I could come to his classroom after school hours. This went on for the whole year. So one day, I leave his class really late. He offers me a ride back home to my apartment, and of course, I said yes. This is when it gets sus. Come back for part 2. This is part 2 of why I tried to run over my science teacher because he was a pervert. So, like I said earlier, I left his class late. It was really dark, and he asked if I needed a ride home to my apartment. And, of course, I said yes, because I thought it might be safer for me to get a ride from him than for me to be walking late in the dark at night. So, I give him directions on where to go. He asked me questions about things outside of school, and I thought it was nice because it seemed like he genuinely cared. Halfway there, he tells me that he's hungry, and if I minded if he parked to the side so he could order food for his house. He ordered his food and then just sat there. And I was like, so are we going to go? Then literally out of nowhere, this man starts bawling. I felt awkward, but I asked him what was wrong. He starts talking about his family and his wife, and divorce. Thought it was weird, but I tried to console him. Then he looks at me, starts rubbing my knees, and says, "This is why I adore you." It gets crazier. I'm running out of time. This is part 3 of why I tried to run over my science teacher because he was a pervert. If you didn't watch part 1 and part 2, go ahead and watch it because I'm about to just go straight in. So he grabs my face and literally tries to kiss me. I was like, what the heck are you doing? He was like, come on now, I know why you came. In my head, I'm like, And he's like, look, just do me this one favor and I give you an A in my class. And I was like, nope, I'm leaving. And he yanks me back closer to him. And guys, I don't know what it is, but I got this like body trigger. Like the moment someone touches me, I'm throwing hands. And I'm messing up Mr. Jackson so bad that he had to hop out of his car. And at that moment, I just saw red. When he got out, I closed and locked his doors. He was yelling at me to get out. By the way, guys, I cannot drive, but that day I just decided to drive. And I swerved, almost crashing the car, trying to run over him. He runs off and runs into the bushes somewhere. From there, I hopped out and ran.
Story time on how on Valentine's Day I found out my fiance was cheating on me with my best friend and that I was actually the side fiance. Y'all ever heard of a side fiance? Yeah, me either. Okay, so boom. Me and my fiance were high school sweethearts and been together since the 11th grade. We'll call my fiance Snake. We met through my best friend and let's call her Chloe. They were actually best friends before I met either of them. I met Chloe in high school and one day when we were hanging out, she invited Snake. Me and Snake immediately clicked and started dating a couple months after that and been together since. Chloe was super supportive of our relationship, but they still hung out without me. At first I had a problem with it, but they convinced me to trust them and that they were best friends before me. So I did. So after we started dating, he proposed to me 2 years later. Chloe was happy and supportive and she was going to be my maid of honor. Well, that was a big mistake. Now that we're up to speed, let's get into it. For part 2. Part 2 on how I found out on Valentine's Day my fiance cheated on me with my best friend and that I was actually the side fiance. So like I said, now that we're up to speed with the background information, let's fast forward to when now me and Snake are engaged and set to tie the knot on May 2nd. We're in the month of February and we all know Valentine's Day is on February. This may sound weird, but he actually would get Valentine's gifts for me and my best friend. And I thought nothing was wrong with it. I honestly don't know how I didn't see all these signs, but anyways, this particular Valentine's Day, my fiance was going to be out of town, so I made plans with Chloe. But in actuality, Chloe was just setting me up. She told me she rented out a hotel and that we could just Netflix and chill, drink wine, eat food, and just celebrate love. I got all cute and told Chloe that I was on my way. She told me she left the door cracked open and to just come in. I forgot to say my fiance's name is Snake and best friend is Chloe. Anyways, you wouldn't believe what I walked into. My heart broke. Part 3 on how on Valentine's Day I found out my fiance was cheating on me with my best friend and that I was actually the side fiance. Anyone ever heard of a side fiance? Yeah, me either. So anyways, like I said, my best friend Chloe told me to just walk into the hotel room. So I did. And of course I started hearing moaning. I seen rose petals leading up to the bed, and when I looked up I see my fiance literally pounding my best friend with her legs wide open. My jaws dropped. My fiance jumped. I screamed. And my fiance Snake is just frozen like he just seen a ghost. Y'all wouldn't believe what happened next. Chloe gets up and puts a robe on and says it's time to tell her. I'm in tears and my fiance just says, I'm sorry, baby. Then Chloe drops the ball and says that they've been sleeping with each other for the past year and that they're getting married. And then she shows me her engagement ring. My heart shattered to a million pieces, for part 4. Part 4 on how on Valentine's Day I found out my fiance was cheating on me with my best friend and that I was actually the side fiance. Yes, a side fiance. So like I said, my best friend Chloe said that they've been sleeping together for 1 year and that they're going to get married. My fiance Snake said it kind of just happened and that he didn't want to tell me this way. I cried saying, how could the both of you do this to me? The betrayal of 2 people you love doing this to you was just deep. What's so messed up is that when I told her I was on my way, that's when she decided to sleep with him so I can literally walk into it. I left and cried my eyes out. My friendship with Chloe was obviously over and my engagement to Snake was called off. It was so embarrassing to tell my family. The marriage with Chloe and Snake didn't last long. They actually divorced 2 years later, but they did have a kid together. I received a letter from Snake basically apologizing and said how he feels shitty about the whole thing. Chloe, on the other hand, she was very cold. She actually never reached out to me. It took a while to let love back in, but after therapy and finding the love of my life, I healed and I'm doing great. Happy Valentine's.
Here's a story time on how I gave birth to my brother's son. So one day, like every other day, I was literally just sitting on the couch watching Hannah Montana episode 3, season 4, while I was wearing shorts and a tank top. My brother was at basketball while I was watching the show. One day, he finally came back from basketball practice, and I looked over, and he started glancing at me. He was looking up and down at me, just like it looked like he was expecting me to do something. I said hi, and he said hi back. But then he said, "You look fine today," and I was so confused and shocked. He asked me if I wanted anything to eat, and I said sure, but I didn't even know he could cook if he was 13 years old. While he was cooking, I started smelling something off. No, I am lactose intolerant. And so when I started sniffing, it smelled like a grilled cheese. And I hate grilled cheese because it always makes my stomach upset. But when he gave it to me, he said it was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And when I looked at him, I was upset and said, "No, it's not. Come back for part 2.
Here's something fun. When you're in a long-term relationship, you'll often find yourself doing this thing with your partner where you'll say, when we have kids, I hope they have this trait of yours. And today my husband was like, I hope our kids will be as resilient and determined as you. When I was 11 years old, I got in a fight with my mum when she was picking me up from school, and I was being so rude that she wanted to teach me a lesson and scare me a little bit. So she said, you can find your own way home. Left me outside of my classroom, got in her car and drove off. Now realistically, she was just doing the block and was going to come back and pick me up, hoping that I would be apologetic. But I wasn't. I was very stubborn and was like, I can find my own way home, and I decided to run home. I in fact sprinted from the school grounds and ran into a close family friend who offered to give me a lift, which I accepted, and I got home by my own means. Now my mum did do the block and not only came back to me not being where she left me, but to one of my friends saying, yeah, I saw her get in the car with some weird guy. Imagining my mum's soul leaving her body that day is enough for me to not ever want kids, let alone kids like me.